Tariffs, tariffs, tariffs! Is Elon Musk taking over America? And is getting rid of the Department of Education a smart idea? It's hard to tell, especially if you're educated in American public schools. That and more on this week's America Uncovered headlines. Welcome to America Uncovered. I'm Chris Chappell, and man, I tell you, the news these days feels like a convoluted TV series. It's hard to keep up. Take, for example, the story about Trump imposing tariffs on Mexico, Canada, and China. One minute, Trump seems absolutely insane, and people are convinced imposing 25% tariffs on Canada and Mexico and 10% tariffs on China is going to tank the economy. The next minute, the tariffs on Mexico were paused for 30 days after they agreed to send 10,000 troops to the border to combat illegal immigration and drug trafficking, especially on fentanyl. And the tariffs on Canada were also paused for 30 days after Canadian Prime Minister, for a little while longer, Justin Trudeau, announced the implementation of a $1.3 billion border plan, which included sending 10,000 troops to their border and appointing a fentanyl czar. And this was all one day. That already feels like it happened years ago. Seriously, did I miss an episode of America the series? I'm feeling a bit lost. And for anyone thinking, I get the tariffs on Mexico and China, but why Canada? Aren't they our harmless northern friends? Who doesn't love Tim Hortons? Well, Trump's tariffs are so international. My twin brother Chris Chappell from China Uncensored covered them in depth on his channel, as well as why Canada also got the tariff smackdown. Care for a quick recap, Chris? Fentanyl in China! It always comes back to China! Wow, what an enticing teaser for that episode. I certainly want to click on that link and see the whole thing so I can be well informed and not just base my opinion off headlines and sound bites. Speaking of which, many on the right are saying Trump gambled and won and forced world leaders to cave. But many on the left are saying Trump is the one who caved. This was all a hollow show of force. And the concessions he got from Canada were plans that were already in the works before he officially levied the tariffs. Which is technically true. However, Canada unveiled these plans after Trump threatened using tariffs in the future. So is Trump a mad genius, or did he just get lucky? Even though he got what he wanted from Mexico and Canada, U.S. stock futures plummeted leading up to the implementation of the tariffs, though they recovered some losses after they were paused. I almost forgot about the constant ups and downs of a Trump presidency. I'm not sure if people are actually tired of winning or if it's just motion sickness. Trump also indicated he might impose tariffs on the EU, but that trade issues with the UK could be worked out. He says the US takes a lot of European goods, but the EU doesn't return the favor.
How many Chevrolets or Fords do you see in the middle of Munich? And the answer is none, because they don't take any cars. They don't take anything. So the European has abused the United States for years, and they can't do that.
Yeah, fair is fair. If the US is going to continue buying BMWs, then it's only fair that Germans start driving around with truck nuts. Although sadly, I wouldn't be surprised if these were made in China. Speaking of which, what about the tariffs on China? China announced retaliatory tariffs against the US and said it will also investigate Google on suspicion of violating antitrust laws. American antitrust laws, Chinese antitrust laws, who knows? The threat is intentionally vague. But the crux of it is Google is going down, which probably not, because Google's market in China is already limited thanks to the Great Firewall. Which begs the question, why on earth has YouTube, which is owned by Google, been suppressing content that's critical of the CCP and boosting content that's pro-China? What are you hoping to accomplish, Google? Reciprocity from China? Yeah, apparently not. So the question remains, are all these tariffs a good thing or a bad thing? If you ask right-leaning media, they'll say Trump expertly used tariffs as a leverage tool to get what he wanted. If you ask left-leaning media, they'll say Trump was reckless and potentially damaged relationships with U.S. allies. And if you ask social media, you'll start a 400-comment argument and have a bunch of bots fishing for your data. Social media was, is, and always will be a mistake. Speaking of Trump being a total chaos monster, he proposed the U.S. take over Gaza and turn it into the Riviera of the Middle East.
The U.S. will take over the Gaza Strip, and we will do a job with it, too. We'll own it and be responsible for dismantling all of the dangerous unexploded bombs and other weapons on the site, level the site and get rid of the destroyed buildings, level it out, create an economic development that will supply unlimited numbers of jobs and housing for the people of the area. Do a real job, do something different.
As for the over 1.7 million Palestinians who currently live there and where they'll stay while all this rebuilding is going on, it's unclear, given that Jordan is not too thrilled with the idea of taking them in. Also, what authorities does Trump have to just take over the land? I don't know, man. Trump just says stuff sometimes. He runs the White House the way a new Dungeons and Dragons player role plays. He says he wants to do something, someone says that's against the rules, and he says, let me roll for it. And after the break, the U.S. withdraws from the UN Human Rights Council. Again. Welcome back. Trump signed an executive order withdrawing the U.S. from the UN Human Rights Council and the United Nations Relief and Works Agency, or UNRWA. He did the same thing during his first term. This is a textbook example of a story under a Trump administration that requires a little bit of explanation. Because on paper, Trump pulling the U.S. out of organizations with human rights and relief in their names makes him sound like a supervillain. However, one current member of the UN Human Rights Council is China, who my twin brother China Uncensored's Chris Chappell will be quick to scream from the top of the mountains is one of the biggest human rights abusers on the planet. Assuming those mountaintops aren't in Tibet, the CCP will blackbag him for being a dissident. Oh, and another recent member was Iran. But hey, I'm not going to cast stones. Iran does enough of that themselves on women who don't abide by their purity standard. And as for UNRWA, this organization focuses on Palestinian relief, and members of the organization were accused of participating, not condoning, participating in the October 7th attack on Israel that killed almost 1,200 people. So yeah, maybe not the best folks to be associating with. Now, for these next stories, we're going to need to do something most people in the media, and a lot of people in general, have trouble with. Looking at both sides of an issue with nuance. Yeah, I know, it's hard to get clicks and sensationalize a rational approach. Watch. This situation is more complex than you realize! U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio announced that El Salvador has offered to house violent U.S. criminals as well as deportees of any nationality in their mega prison for a fee. Now, the easy sensationalist approach to this would be, oh my God, Trump is going to deport legal U.S. citizens, which means he can jail dissidents and ship them off to an international American gulag. He's about to achieve his final form of American Hitler. Could any of that happen? Sure. The same way your Uber driver's mixtape he insists on playing every ride could win a Grammy. It's possible polka metal could sweep the nation, but let's maybe wait a minute before placing any bets on it. What's important to note is this deal was offered, not accepted, and even if it were accepted, there would be legal challenges, as there should be, since deporting U.S. citizens isn't something you can do willy-nilly, even if they are convicted criminals. Rubio and Trump both know this. Rubio said, "We have a constitution, but it's a very generous offer. Obviously, the administration will have to make a decision." And to be clear, if all these hurdles were cleared and U.S. criminals were deported to a foreign prison, it would be awful. Mainly because just think of what it would do to the American prison industrial complex. Won't anyone stand up for these poor private prison capitalists? How will they be able to afford their fourth private jet now? This isn't putting America first. Speaking of money and another story needing nuance, the Trump administration is allowing Treasury officials associated with Elon Musk's DOGE team to access the Treasury system that handles payments. Again, it would be easy to take the sensationalist route and scream, Elon Musk now has all our Social Security payments in his Nazi-saluting hands. He's going to control all the money in the U.S. and soon the world. However, that pesky nuance is keeping me from riding that sweet, clickbaity gravy train. Man, integrity is hard. This move isn't giving Elon Musk control of the Treasury. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent signed off on a plan giving a team working for the Treasury acting as a liaison to DOGE access to the payment system. According to a source for Politico, the Secretary's approval was contingent on it being essentially a read-only operation. So no, Musk isn't going to replace George Washington on the $1 bill, which is kind of a shame because I thought some folks were clamoring for an African American to be on their money. So why does Musk want access to the system? Well, the Department of Government Efficiency is looking at government efficiency. Musk claims that DOGE discovered that payment approval officers at Treasury were instructed always to approve payments, even to known fraudulent or terrorist groups. They literally never denied a payment in their entire career, not even once. That's terrible. This means I could have asked the Treasury for $1 billion and they might not have turned me down. What a wasted opportunity. So does this mean that Musk is trying to control all of the US's money? Probably not. Does it mean we should trust him implicitly? Again, probably not. Trump made Musk a special government employee, which could potentially allow him to avoid disclosing conflicts of interest and finances that regular government employees would. Except for members of Congress, of course, who absolutely aren't doing any insider trading and are just making tons of lucky guesses. Meanwhile, having an unelected billionaire wield such power in government isn't a great look. By the way, that's not my opinion. I'm quoting Republicans who said the same thing about George Soros whenever a Democrat was in office. But if you're worried America will turn into an oligarchy, I can at least put those worries to rest by assuring you that no, it won't become one. It's already been one. There, those worries are at rest. And now, you have new worries to worry about. In yet another story requiring tons of research and nuance, because why allow me any time to sleep, CNN is reporting that the Trump administration is drafting an executive order that would begin the process of eliminating the Department of Education. So long, Education Secretary Linda McMahon. Rest in peace. Now, Trump wouldn't be able to just abolish the department with an executive order. He'd need congressional approval. This is just to get the ball rolling and reduce the DOE's power. This doesn't come as much of a surprise since this is something Trump has been saying he'd like to do for a while now.
And I will shut down the federal Department of Education, and we will move everything back to the states where it belongs and where they can individualize education and do it with the love for their children.
Again, shutting down the Department of Education sounds terrible on paper. But you have to look at the results the department has put forth, which in of itself is hard to do. Elon Musk shared this meme claiming that since the department was founded by President Carter in 1979, the US went from first to 24th in education. It was shared by tens of thousands. So is that true? Well, it's hard to say since there isn't just one test or metric to determine where the US ranks in education. But the fact that tens of thousands of people shared it without question doesn't exactly make the US education system look amazing. Way to 4D chess, Musk. Now, I've covered how there are many problems in education. Some of these come from the federal level and some come from the state level. Did the federal government having a hand in schools make them worse? I don't know. Will giving more power to the states make schools better? I don't know. Will this at least remove more government wasteful spending? No, say the DOE officials making ridiculous salaries. The truth is, improving education isn't a one-step easy solution. Unless, as Trump tried slapping tariffs on it, it's worth a try. And before you go, check out the latest episode of my new show, Deep Thoughts While Gaming, about the just-released Kingdom Come Deliverance 2. Once again, I'm Chris Chappell. Thank you for watching America Uncovered.